So welcome back. Now, one of the things is that when you set your calendar, which we did in the time management number one video, which will be linked. Okay, so you'll see it on the screen and you'll see it in the notes. There is reality. So every single day will change. What you see right now on the screen is basically just one day. And this is what I would do throughout the day. So not only do I just take a look at the calendar, so on the left-hand side, so what you have, okay, so right here is basically your day for the calendar. And yes, you have two courses in there that you have to attend, and you put these deep study sessions for math and physics and so on. But all of this was actually done beforehand. And of course, your whole day has been laid out on the calendar, which you saw in the video previously. Now, what happens day to day now? And that's what we want to work. And I just want to share with you what actually is, the true happening of the day, because there is no day almost ever that goes as you want it to plan. There will be always something that kind of creeps up on you. And that's the idea. That's the frustration that people have. They'll set a calendar, they'll kind of work with it for a few weeks or something, and then they just get too frustrated. But the key is you want to build it a habit and constantly do it, okay? And understand the fact that things will go wrong. So now, let's take a look. So I've laid out, this would be done actually in my journal. So I carry a journal and I literally, okay, would write this down. Now, so this is for, let's say, Monday, okay? So February 3rd, it doesn't matter which day it is. You can pick a day and notice that on the actual calendar, so it says between 6 and 7:30, you start the day, you eat, and you commute throughout, and this is how I would do it. Okay. Now, one of the questions is, as you're looking at this, this schedule, there's actually like literally just time frames written and little notes on the side. So I want to talk about these different things, okay, as you're going through and explain to you what happens, how do you set this up. So when do I do this? Number one. So typically, or ideally, I would want to do it the night before. So before you kind of end the day, you plan out, you open up your calendar, you kind of clear everything out and kind of plan things out. So, you would write down each little thing that you would want to accomplish in the day. Now, if that doesn't work, okay, so for me, for example, rarely actually do I get a chance to do it towards the end of the day. But okay, as I wake up, I definitely, that's where I spend most of my time, and I allocate time to this. So notice, start of day basically means this, okay? So set this thing up, right? So as you're setting this thing up, I go one by one to try to figure out what I'm going to do. So, you wake up, you get ready. So whatever it is that you do in the mornings, okay, wash up and so on. I set this thing, okay, in terms of the day schedule, what I will be doing. And I'll eat, okay, and then I'll carry on. So notice here, eat and setup of the day, so 30 minutes. Now, here is the reality. Whenever you're working with this and you're glancing back and forth and setting it up, this is not a 2-minute exercise. Sometimes people say that it is, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. The reality is, okay, yes, it sometimes for a smaller day might be 5 minutes, but the truth is it'll typically take me about 10 minutes, okay, even more, okay, maybe sometimes up to 15 to really kind of plan out and think how I want it. But it's worth it. It's worth investigating and putting in the time into your day. So as you can see, okay, it lines up exactly with what I'm doing. Okay, so then I commute and I learn. Now, one thing is I always leave myself margins of safety. So for commute, things can go wrong. And I'll show you at the end of the day what actually happened here in the whole day so that you can see the reality of this. So this is ideally if everything goes right. You commute, okay, in terms of when I say I'm learning, I'm typically reading, okay, or I'll be listening to a podcast or audiobook or something like that on my way in. Okay, then I have this settling time. So typically I might take a snack or something like that, okay, eat and kind of set myself up. And then because I know I'm doing a deep study here, okay, so in terms of math, right, I would kind of lay out, okay, where am I going, right? So I have my kind of place where I would like to study, so it's in isolations and so on, and make sure that the library is open or wherever it is that you are, maybe a coffee shop even. And now I actually tell myself, all right, what am I going to be doing? So it's, notice, for about an hour and a half, and I'm starting off with math recall. So I am taking the previous things from the lectures from the last week, and I am recalling for myself what I have learned. So I'll scan through my notes, go through it, and then literally close the notes, and then just recall what have I learned and what has been done, so that it sets me up and I kind of remember and I force my brain to recall all the information, not by staring at it, by actually talking, right? Ideally, you'd want to talk out loud to yourself, even write it down as you're recalling. But sometimes if there's a lot of people, you don't want to look a little bit odd, okay? So, I talk in my head. Okay, and every so often it might come out. And then, so in this day I planned out that I'm going to be working on my math homework. So there is nothing in this time. Deep study means deep study. There is no phone, okay, there is no internet. It is just literally study. It's a small chunk that I want to dedicate as much as possible to get as much accomplished for math. And then again, notice there's a little bit of a margin of safety, because sometimes you go, into, okay, you fall in a nice groove and you might study a little bit longer, or, something may happen. So notice there's 30 minutes now gap before my class that I have here. And then, so in classes, obviously, you're there, you're present. And what I often see is so many people are on their phones and they're just tuning right out. Just be there. Yes, it's not fun, right? Unless you completely love the subject or something. But typically, even if you do, you have to pay attention. And people are just wandering all over the place. Be present in the class. So that's so much easier to take the notes, write it down. Again, as you're taking the notes, write as much as you can in terms of, especially this, because it's a math, write all the problems down, okay, and as you're going through it, okay, put them in your notes. So then, within the day, so there's also physics class, which carries forward, and then notice I set a time a little bit for myself in terms of eating, okay, so in terms of catching up, on food and just kind of unwinding a little bit. Notice now I have planned out in my calendar, there's another study. So now the study is here, I wanted to do physics, okay, and then an assignment, okay, and then we carry on from there, and then we get into, okay, again, a little bit of a break. Notice 4:30, so there's a gap, always margin of safety depending on what happens, and then we're back. So another study session trying to recall math, and that recall is based on the lecture that happened. And then because we had an assignment to start for physics, okay, we continue that assignment, okay, so that is what we have right here. So this is the setup, and then we're kind of done, we're settling in, okay, and then we'll commute back, right? Eat, relax, and then if you have still energy in terms of trying to do another, okay, so here's, so maybe math homework or physics, okay, so I wrote this down because that will depend on how I feel. Now, you notice on the right-hand side, I wrote reminders. So I want to talk about this because throughout the day, things happen, okay, and things will tweak off in your mind, and then, you'll be like, oh, I have to do that. And then you say, okay, whatever, so I'll think of it later. But we forget. So what I do is instead, I'll just literally write it down. Or maybe, in the class, the prof or teacher changes the date on me or something on the assignment, so I write it down as a reminder. Or even it just comes to my head that I have to call somebody. I'll write it down, or email somebody because something came up, or pick up a book and it just clicked in my mind. So those are the reminders that I set. And those reminders at the end of the day, then I transfer back into calendar and set actually reminders in the calendar for the specific day that I would want to think about them. Now, this I don't always do, but I do try to do it every so often because no day is perfect. I actually like to write down what went wrong. What were the things I wasn't thinking about that actually happened? Because a timeline will change and you have to adopt, right? So now let's take a look what really happened during the day. So this is what actually happened. So notice it's all marked up, okay, and things have changed. So notice I didn't actually kind of get up at 5:45. It took me a little bit of time, maybe hit the snoozer a couple times, okay, and then I was up, right? Now setting up the day, okay, so notice the check marks, okay, so that it all worked out. Now commuting. So notice, it took me a little bit longer. And the reason is, put a star here because this was something unpredictable. The brakes gave out on my bike. So, when that happened, I had to get off the bike, kind of had to, wiggle things around. And by the time I got on, it made my commute a little bit longer. That was the unpredictable, right? That happened. Now, we come back in and notice that's why the margins of safety, right? Notice the settling in. Okay, it wasn't necessarily now 7:30 to 8 because my commute was a little bit longer. Okay, it's something that happened that I wasn't predicting. I don't know. Maybe you're commuting through a tube or a subway or something like that. I don't know, or car, and things go wrong. So then we go in and notice, okay, so my math recall, so that worked okay. Worked on the homework. Notice I wrote a little bit of a snack here. Okay, and now in in math and physics classes, okay, so things started coming up, and notice reminders. Okay, so one of the reminders right here, math, assignment. So A, so that just stands for assignment, and it has been changed. Okay, so the date has been changed on me, so I just put it in there. So I try not to put it right into my calendar right away. I write it just as a note, okay, that I'm going to come back to at the end of the day. Okay, so now send an email to dentist. That popped out into my head, okay, because let's say I wanted to schedule a cleaning. So I put a little note and then I'll set a reminder. Okay, so now as I continue through the day, okay, so notice eating. So met Peter, talked a little bit, so ended up eating with a friend, okay, and that can happen as well. Sometimes you'll meet somebody on the way, okay, and that may wheel off. Notice that meeting actually took me off a little bit, and then my study, okay, was off. So what I ended up doing was I was trying to do a physics recall, okay, and notice right here, so I swapped basically these two, right? So I felt that, okay, so my kind of plans that I had to swap them around, okay, so I would swap these around. Okay, and notice I did a physics recall, and then I moved up my math recall a little bit, and I wasn't able to start the assignment. Okay, just my mind wasn't working on it properly. I started looking through it, and it didn't just gel for me. So I just let my mind just dwell on it and just shift it to the other session. So then I was setting it up, and then a few things came up. So brakes. Okay, obviously I have to kind of look and fix them at some point, okay, on the bike. And then the math homework, because I shifted things around, I got to schedule it at another time, right? So then as I'm going through, so notice in my study, so I continued on, okay, 6 to 7 commuting, put in emails, I was answering kind of emails, checking up on the day, okay. Notice I tried not to do that throughout the day. Because if you check emails constantly, you're always in somebody's business, right? And then your mind is always thinking about those things, and you don't want that, right? You want to try to concentrate on the things that you want to try to accomplish. So then I ate, relaxed. The math homework, okay, wasn't up for it, as I said, so I basically will have to move it, okay. The physics assignment I actually worked on, okay, and was actually able to complete it. Now, the unpredictable things, okay, that happen. So, and this is what I want to talk to you about, and that's one of the reasons why the assignment was postponed. Okay, the brakes gave out. I talked about the internet went down, okay, in the library. So I wasn't able to connect and actually get the information that I wanted back from my notes. So that's why I had to quickly think, and I moved the assignment over. So I was gelling on it, and I can't think about it. Let me just think on my feet. Let me move it over, okay. It sucked, but that's what it is, right? And got delayed, okay, because I met Pete, right? So, and then we were chatting about some other stuff that was kind of non-school related. So all of this stuff would go in a journal throughout the day as I'm kind of glancing through these things, okay, and then completing it out. And that's the reality, right? It's not always this nice. That's not life. That doesn't go that way. So here, okay, this is much more realistic. Now, of course, every day a little bit changes. I don't want to go through the calendar of every single day, but this gives you an idea, okay, of what actually happens, okay, and the unpredictability of it. Remember, okay, you have to create a habit out of this, right? And if you want to manage your time wisely, putting in a schedule and then understanding what happens throughout the day just lets your mind flow. And then quickly you kind of look back at your journal and say, okay, what am I doing next? And then you're going in those directions. And yes, it takes discipline and it takes a lot of time to try to build this habit. Sooner you build it, the better it is for you. Okay, and if you want to be a successful student or a learner or anybody, this time management idea, the calendar from part one of the video, and setting this up on each day helps. Some days you may drop it, right? Some days, it just may not work, but as much as possible, you want to try to do it every single day so that it's planned and you're not being reactive to things and thinking, what am I doing next? Right? You want to know what you're doing next so that you can set it up, okay, as a student or a learner. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope that you found this useful.